Hello and welcome back to the Deep Learning course. This week we'll discuss the crucial architectural building block of attention and the extremely successful transformer architecture that heavily relies on attention. Transformers are the most prominent type of neural architecture these days, so you should be very motivated to understand them well. In this first video, we'll get started by motivating attention. Let's dive right in. Motivation for attention. In many applications, the inputs to a neural network are very high dimensional. Think, for example, of modern image resolutions of thousands times thousands of pixels. So there you have over 1 million input dimensions, and not all of these input dimensions are equally important for classifying some characteristic of the input. And which parts are actually relevant? Well, that depends on the task at hand that you're solving. For example, you could characterize the mood of a scene, or you could do object recognition, or you could do activity recognition, etc., etc. And different parts of the image might be more important for one task than for the other. And attention is all about learning to focus on some parts of the input data and downweighting other parts of the input data, and really then attending to the parts that are useful for the particular task that you're trying to solve. Now, we humans are actually very good at attention. We have very high dimensional input information all the time. All of our senses are constantly firing, and we only attend to parts of it. One example is in visual attention. So take, for example, this scene here. What would you attend to in this driving scene? And take into account that the fovea of your eye only gives you high acuity vision in a tiny region of your field of view. So, well, it depends actually which task you're trying to solve. If you're the driver, well, then you probably want to attend to sort of the cars around you. If you're the co-driver and you're trying to find directions, then it's much more important to actually focus on these traffic signs here. And there aren't a whole lot of tasks that would actually let you focus on some element of the sky here, or some element of the trees, or the site here. So some parts of the image are much more likely to be useful for a particular task at hand. And you can learn to weigh some parts of your input more highly than other parts of your input. That's what attention is about, and we as humans actually do something very similar. Another example is auditory attention. So imagine you're trying to focus on a single conversation at a cocktail party. And we as humans are actually typically quite good at this. There can be a lot of different conversations, and we just focus on the conversation that we're in. Maybe until we hear our name in another conversation, and all of a sudden our attention focuses over to this other conversation. Finally, humans can actually also attend to parts of our memory. As an example, consider that we still remember some events of our childhood. That is many, many years ago. And we can't possibly attend to every moment of our life to the same degree as to some of those very memorable events of, for example, of our childhood back then. As another example, consider what did we actually cover in the first week of this course. So we can direct our attention to some part of our memory, in particular here, the first week of this course. Well, what did we cover there? We covered something about the motivation for deep learning. We covered something about the history of deep learning. And as we think about this, we direct our attention. Actually, we remember more and more things about what we covered then. So that's a very powerful principle that we as humans use. We can attend to very small parts of high dimensional input, and we can also direct our attention to solve the task at hand. as a final piece of motivation for attention, and in particular in this context of this lecture on deep learning, attention is a very powerful core concept in deep learning. It is a key element of the transformer architecture that is extremely popular and extremely successful in deep learning these days. And attention is really used in most state-of-the-art networks these days. And finally, attention also facilitates the interpretability of neural networks to some degree. And this brings us to the end of this lecture. And as always, I'd like to leave you with some questions for you to activate the material. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.